This week on Atlanta Sex Therapy and Inside Look, we talked about sexual surrogacy. So we had the best time. I love explaining these really hard conversations. I think you're going to love it. So, hey, let's jump in. Oh. All right, so happy Friday, happy fall. We're on countdown to Thanksgiving. If you're like me, you are counting down to that time off so that you can do nothing and maybe catch up on some TV. But today we're going to take this opportunity to talk about sexual surrogates. Okay. And so the first thing I want to say is what a sexual surrogate is. And so a sexual surrogate is a person that will do sexual activities with you for a price, of course, but it's done more from a therapeutic aspect. And so the best movie out there that talks about that shows a good example of sexual surrogates is it's called, I think it's The Sessions by Helen Hunt. Sherry, and do me a favor. I want to make sure I got the name of the movie right. Would you Google Helen Hunt, The Sessions, real quick, and just make sure that is a movie that I had made it up. I know Helen Hunt is the actress in it because I love her, and I loved her for that because she did an excellent job of showing what a sexual surrogate is. And so, in that particular movie, the male in the movie who was seeking her services was in an iron lung. He had polio as a kid, and he was in an iron lung. And so he was completely paralyzed. But he wanted to experience sexual touch. He wanted to experience that. And, and that's one of the things that I think I've had to come to terms with. There are some people in this world who will never be able to get a romantic partner for whatever reason. So it could be a physical disability, it could be a mental health disability, it could be a developmental disability, but there are some people in this world who will never have a sexual partner, who will never have a romantic partner. And I think that kind of showcases in this particular guy, he was just so disabled that he wasn't. So he had to have nurses come in to like reset his machinery so he could breathe. Like he just was totally incapacitated, really. But his mind was all there, and he wanted. And so it shows at the beginning of the movie, like he's talking to the priest. That is it. The session by Helen Hunt. Yeah. Yes. So like he goes and he talks to his priest about it, and and it's so interesting. And Joe, you and I can have a conversation about this one day. We won't go with it today, but how some churches are not set up for disabilities.
No.
They're not set up for people with disabilities at all. And so you see him like laid out because he's on a basically like a hospital bed. And so there's no and so the essentially the priest has to talk to him in the middle of the church because there's nowhere else for the hospital bed to really fit.
Right.
And so the priest is in the pew and he's right there. And he's just trying to figure it out. If I'm on this earth and I've got my mental faculties, but I can't get a romantic partner because I can't do the things that people look for in partners, what does that mean for me? And before I die, I'd like to experience a sexual experience.
Let's experience it.
He hires Helen Hunt. And so it's really interesting. So every now and then somebody will hear about a sexual surrogate and they'll call us for sexual surrogacy. And that is not something we do. Sexual surrogacy is illegal in the state of Georgia, but it is legal in the state of California. And it may be legal in one other state with that. And so it's really if you feel like you have a severe deficit and you're just scared to interact with a romantic partner because you're so fearful that you'll be rejected, or you don't want to explain it to them, or you don't want to be you almost kind of want to get your skills up before you get out there and deal with a romantic partner. So that's where a sexual surrogate would come in. usually when a sexual surrogate is being used, it's almost like the therapist and the sexual surrogate will work in tandem to help that person build up the skills, because a sex therapist isn't going to do anything. Like we're at the beginning of the day, sex therapists are mental health therapists first. Mm-hmm. Then we specialize in couples and relationships, and then we specialize usually in the sex stuff. And so we're always going to be in the office, our clothes on. It's talking. It's the mental health aspect of what's going on. So, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about vaginismus, because vaginismus is a fear. So the therapist is going to address those fears that you have. It's a fear that's presenting in your body, psychosomatic, but it's a fear. And so in these situations, a lot of times it's lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem. It could be a disability with that. But I would venture to guess, Joe, a lot of the people who are calling us for sexual surrogates, they're physically fine. They're just scared to death. Like that, I don't know what a woman's going to be expecting this from me, or a man is going to be expecting this from me. And they're just scared they won't be able to perform. Okay, what were we going to say?
Oh, this particular one is dealing with ED.
Gotcha.
And he has had shots and electrical treatments to try and get the blood flowing.
Yeah.
And that's what caused him to call. And he was just not knowing where to go.
Yeah.
And who to talk to. And he wanted to know if he could have that help. So it segues into what you're talking about too, in a broad way. Mm-hmm. So, but the other piece is that people who do call don't know what to do. And it's kind of like going back to the sex thing where they didn't have the basics in school, like we talked about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So yes, it is all that with that added to it too. Yeah. And he was kind of at his wit's end. And I told him it's illegal here in Georgia. And he said, well, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And can you all help me?
So I guess I'm wondering what difference does he think it would make if he's not in fear? Like, why does he think that a sexual surrogacy would cure his ED?
Well, it's the idea of almost hiring a driving instructor as opposed to just trying to get in the car and drive yourself. Like it's this person will have this expertise and be patient with me as I learn the skill that I need to learn. You know, sex is about skills. Sex is a skill. All of it is skills. Learning to approach somebody from the opposite sex, or the same sex, learning to approach a romantic partner, to have conversations with a romantic partner, to go on dates with a romantic partner, you know, when to get physical with a romantic partner. Most of those are all skills. And so if you are in the, I'm going to say more mainstream population, that's not true either. There's a good part of the population, let me say that, who learn these skills kind of through high school and slowly over time. You know, just like there are some people who just kind of naturally learned to drive with their parents and it was slow and it just happened. And then there's some of us who it just never happened for whatever reason. Sometimes it's religious reasons and I don't want to do any of that. And then, you know, they get 30, 40, wait a minute now. That's not what they told me. And that's not what, right. And so now I got to figure out how to do something different. How do I skill up now?
Right.
And so, or it could just be, recently I've been dealing with a lot of medical staff and medical doctors. And we talk about how they have been so focused on their studies and their job is all consuming that by the time they get finished with all of their schooling, they're like 30, but they haven't had those natural relationship experiences with that. Some figured out how to get it in, some didn't, because they've just been in the books, with that. And so they need to kind of skill up on their relationship skills. Now, the good thing is they're a little bit older, and so they can learn faster. But when it's something that we're scared of, when we're a little bit older, we learn slower. And it's really kind of like driving. Learning how to drive at 30 when you could die. It's different from learning how to drive when you're 15. When you're 15, I want to do this because I want to be an adult and I want to be able to, get myself around, and I want to be independent. When you're 30, you've had this experience of living without the independence and you're fine. And so now trying to drive 30 can feel a little bit scary. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. What other questions do y'all have about sexual surrogacy?
That was it. But the question I have, I think, is the elephant in the room is what's the difference between that and just hiring somebody to
honestly,
it's like going out to I'm trying not to be broad. So I'm going to keep it right there.
No. We've all heard that being the oldest profession in the book. All right. And so the difference usually is skill. And so where a surrogate has been specifically trained to deal with you and to help you build those skills, a professional night walker, let's say that. Well, I mean, this is YouTube, like prostitute. So where a prostitute, she may or may not deal with you. She may have an attitude dealing with you. She may not want to deal with you no matter how much you paying. And it's for the purpose of the experience. The prostitute isn't trying to build a skill. I mean, unless you get a really nice one who probably should have been a teacher but chose this profession as well, then she may build a skill, but you're taking like a risk to find the right one.
Oh, okay. So it's more doing that is like, but you've got to find them. So doing that is like having someone at least that is closer to what you want.
Yeah.
Without getting the other stuff with it.
Yeah.
Is that?
Okay. And usually a surrogate is going to be working with your therapist. And so it's a very, I want to say kind of medical model, but it's a therapeutic model. Like it's a therapeutic model where we are definitely therapeutically building up skills. But a lot of people have just gotten a prostitute to get, the first sexual experience. A lot of my clients have told me, they had a uncle or somebody in their family who was just like, hey, you need to have this experience. I got you somebody. Here's a prostitute. Here's a something. And so if that's the way it works for you, that's the way it works for you.
Yeah.
If that. And so there's no judgment here. I will say if anybody's looking for a sexual surrogate, or you just at your wit's end and you don't know where to go, come in and have a conversation with us. And so we can at least help you figure out how to get some direction with that. And I think that, yes, ma'am, Sharon.
I had a client that flew to California and did that.
Okay.
Oh.
I did not know that, Sharon.
Okay. I love it.
Okay. And so I think it's important, based off this client's experience, to be sure you understand exactly what you want your experience to be when you get there.
Yes, that's really good.
Because the experience was they could request anything, but they froze up and didn't know what to request. So they felt cheated out of. They didn't felt like the surrogacy cheated them out of it, but they felt cheated out of the experience. And so we was working through out of the regret that they had, and it was a person with disabilities.
Oh.
So,
wow.
Right. And they froze up, didn't know what to do. And they said, I had this time, I saved my money, spent all this money to fly, spent all this money to go there, and I only got one thing done because I didn't know what to ask for. So I just think that if you're thinking about taking that trip to California and doing that, make sure you completely understand what it is you want to experience and write it down.
Yeah.
So that if you do have a moment of anxiousness and not knowing what to do, that you can just pull out your notes and go, yes, this is what I wanted to experience.
Which is why we've always had people who were going to see a sexual surrogate, at least from our perspective, the sex therapist perspective, work with a therapist first, because there are a lot of little skills that need to be built, like knowing what you want, asking for what you want, and a lot of that is really, honest to God, it's a lot of times sexual shame, and so, I don't want to say I want this out loud, we look at people with disabilities as if they're asexual. And so they will almost kind of feel embarrassed because they're sexual beings, even though they have a disability.
And families that's caretakers of those with disabilities tend to, although they intellectually understand this person is 35 or 40, it's still because they care for them and never stop caring for them in a way like when you have a child. It sort of throws their thinking off about their sexual needs. And then,
very true.
Although the person with disability might be very comfortable saying, "Hey,
I'm a sexual being
here, and I need
right.
The family receiving that and being able to even say they want to fly to California, trust their ability to make that decision.
Yeah.
Right. And trust their ability to really understand that that's what they want, and then trust the other person that they're not taking advantage of them. So it can just be a huge dynamic, especially when you're dealing with somebody with a disability. The independence versus autonomy. How do families respect that? It's just a lot, can be like multi-layered in a way.
No, it's very, very multi-layered, which is why I'm going to say, come in and talk to us first. So if you're in the Georgia area and you're thinking like, yeah, I really would like to have a surrogate to teach some skills to me, come in, let's figure out that first. And so we'll do the mental health side. We'll make sure that you can request what you want. We'll make sure that hopefully you're doing everything in a responsible way with that. We'll have that conversation with you. We'll have that. And I think that's where sex therapists shine the most, and is that we have those hard conversations. Like, that's what our training does. It gets us to the point where we can have that hard conversation with you and not blink. And so it's so funny. In a couple of sessions this week, I got to ask some very hard questions to my clients, and they're like, "Oh, I couldn't say that out loud." I was like, "Honestly, God, that's why you're paying me the big bucks,
right?
That's why, to be able to ask the hard questions, to be able to say point blank, da 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 da, point blank, da 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 da, point blank, da 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 da." And then this is one of the wonderful things that I just love about like human beings. When you see me doing something, when I'm able to say it clearly out of my mouth, it gives you permission now to say it clearly out of your mouth with that. And so it's almost a ripple effect. We get to model as therapists that it's okay to say, "Hey, I want sex." It's okay to say, "I want more sex." It's okay to say, "I'm not as sexual as you. I don't want that much sex. We got to talk about something different." And be okay with who you are. In every other area, we can. It's a marital relationship. I want to say 10%. I want to say 20%. Okay, we got to have a compromise in the middle. But when it comes to sex, I want to have sex every day. Okay, I want to have sex once a week. It becomes hurt feelings. It becomes all of these things, as opposed to just a meet in the middle, like anything else. All right. Anything else in our last couple of minutes you guys can think about sexual surrogacy?
No, I really like that explanation, because I think you both hit it on the head. That's what people are looking for. And they need to know the how to get to that surrogate, because they don't know, and they don't know the questions to ask.
Right.
And just like the example that Sharon gave, is that he got there and he was like, "Well, I didn't get everything I wanted," but also sometimes people don't know what to ask for, so they don't know what to.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, I've never done it."
If self-esteem, confidence, and anxiety is some of the reasons that's influencing the problem, and you get there and those problems haven't been worked through, then you still stuck with the same set of problems.
Right. They come back. They come back with it.
I think that's probably why you need to have a sex therapist on board.
Exactly.
So we can figure out What do you need to get from the sex surrogate? And then what skill do you just need to build? And so if you're just trying to find a romantic partner, we need to build those skills first. And so you're worried, okay, I'm gonna get a romantic partner, and then I'm not gonna know what to do when it comes time for us to have sex. But if you don't know the skill of how to get to a romantic partner, then learning that skill is not gonna help you at all. It's like buying a car before you've learned how to drive.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. Now you just got a car sitting in your garage. You got a skill that you can't use. And so we need to really make sure that those other skills are there. And so a lot of people don't understand that they're skills, the skills. Communication is a skill. Following up with people is a skill. And we can see this when we see it like in the workforce or in the business world or with friends and family, but we forget that this is a skill in a romantic relationship.
Yep.
You know, calling and remembering to check in on a new partner or a new friend. How do you build a relationship with that? And so those are all things that we help our clients do and through, you know, and sometimes it's as simple as, okay, you got to go out in public and say hey to somebody.
Yeah.
Just be able to say hello to a stranger and start a conversation.
Right.
That's a skill. Some people have, you know, they did it and can do it, and other people's that scares them out of their mind.
Wow.
With that. So okay.
That was good.
Any other questions on surrogacy or anything?
That was great.
All right. Well, I'm so glad we got to educate on this today. Like I really am, because I want better information out in the world. I still don't like. I've been doing this work a while. So when somebody talks to me and they have no idea what we do, I'm like, oh really? Like I didn't know. And so I'm really glad we're doing this so that we can have those conversations. So I'm going to say right now, if anybody is out there in the world listening to us, you've come across this video and you have questions, feel free to call us. And so we'll put in the show notes. Somebody will put in the show notes our 1-800 number. When you call, you'll be talking to Joe and she'll get you hooked up with the right therapist for you. And if you just have a question or a topic you want us to address and make a YouTube video about, we're always looking for ideas. And so send us an email, and I'll put an email address in the show notes so that we'll answer your questions. We'll get to them and we'll answer them. So, okay. Ladies, happy Friday. Have a great day.
Happy Friday. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. You too.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today about sexual surrogacy. If you have more questions, if you feel like this is a viable option for you, then come in and see us. Come talk to us. Have a session with us, and so we can help you make great decisions. We're here to help. And if you're liking this video and the content we're putting out, please, 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 please like, subscribe, hit the notifications buttons, and I'm going to actually implore you to send this video to 7 people you know, because you never know who'll need this information. Thank you, and just have a great life.